What's up, guys? Thanks so much for checking out the channel. Today we're back with another Hail Caesar faction review, and we're continuing right along. So our previous video we looked at Qin, China. This one we're taking a look at Alexander's successors. So, if you already have Macedonians, this is a great one to basically just try some other things with, and we'll talk about that. This was a really interesting list that does a lot of similar things to the Alexander's Macedonians, but also some key differences as well. But great if you're looking at, again, the various successors here, and it does let you play around with those the differences in those successors a little bit, but it would also be interesting to maybe see some more strictly like restrictions, I guess, on what could be fielded. So, whether it's like Ptolemaic Egypt and other things like that, or the Seleucids and so on and so forth. So anyway, so as this one was talking about here, so let's just read through this real briefly. So the successor states as they developed in the generation after Alexander's death, so a lot of the similar styles. However, the same warriors continue to fight under new masters, often into old age. So the successors were quick to make use of native troops when they were available, especially elephants and cav. The option to replace cavalry, spears, javelins with lances represents the Macedonian ziston in cases where players feel they want to make the distinction between the longer and heavier weapon and lighter spears by the opposing horsemen. Where any cavalry equipped with lances, where any are equipped with lances, all agema or agema, however you pronounce that, companion cavalry should be equipped, so equipped as this was their favored weapon. So some interesting things to look up to. Again, Perdiccas, Craterus, Antipater, Ptolemy, of course, Lysimachus, Antigonus, Seleucus, and more. So. And really, this would be a great one, too, for, if you're playing like SPQR, other skirmish things. So just some of the other surviving generals and lower commanders would be great for little skirmish battles here. But let's take a look at what this list does. So, again, a lot of similarities, but some key differences, too. So infantry is still 50% of the whole army, again, not counting skirmishers. And cavalry can make up the other half. So, and as normal, or as we saw before, basically pikes would have to be at least a quarter or more of the infantry. Of one form or another there. We do get artillery again, one of each type up to 10%. So again, we haven't seen much of artillery so far, but again, it's just cool to have access to that. We could also have elephants up to 10% of the army, and they're not being grouped under cavalry, so that is a separate category there. And so really what you could have is something along the lines of, 50% has to be infantry. Let's say you did 10% elephants, 10% artillery, then that would leave 30% cavalry if you wanted sort of that full diversity. Then we got our division and skirmisher rules as normal there. I don't think there were any differences. So this is kind of a longer list too, so this isn't the whole list here. So this is goes on 2 pages basically. But we got our phalangite heavy infantry. Armed with pikes, again, our sort of standard solid heavy infantry corps here. They all come with phalanx, and we can make various upgrades. So half of them could be veterans to represent, the survivors there of still Alexander's campaigning and stuff like that, and maybe their immediate successors. So they're drilled in phalanx for some more points, again, getting a little more expensive. But then one unit, and you might as well take it, is your guard unit, basically. So the elite, the cream of the crop, basically, but that's going to be quite expensive. But that will give them drilled phalanx, elite, and stubborn. So just one badass unit there. And they should be able to do some work for you. You do also have access to mercenary hoplites, and again, they're elite and phalanx. Interesting that they're not drilled, but that's maybe a topic for a separate discussion there. But nonetheless, they're armed with long spears, so key difference there, not pikes, but 35 points a pop there. So again, your infantry base for the army is just still going to be this solid pike and spear block. So you can definitely do some solid work there. Then we jump right into light infantry with spears and javelins. So obviously a corresponding drop in sort of effective combat ability. But we could go and upgrade one unit to Thracians, which would give them tough fighters and still a pretty respectable clash statistic there for not too many points. So obviously they're not going to be like a center line unit, but they could do some work on the sides, certainly trying to mop up on like small units and stuff like that. And speaking of which, we could also downgrade this unit into a small unit as well. So all right, then we're going to flip over to the next page here, and as but wait, there's more. So there's a lot more with this list. Getting into skirmishers, so we have all kinds of neat flavors here. And again, basically small units is the way to go here, as we're kind of being directed, but we do have access to a fair amount of long-range firepower. So these guys, again, are not going to be great in hand-to-hand, but skirmishers with javelins, then we go, we can upgrade half of them to slings instead. We could also make 1 unit Rhodian slingers, basically, which will give them marksmen. We could also switch over to bows, and then basically, let's see, extra to upgrade skirmisher bowmen to Cretans. And that also adds marksmen. Interesting that normally there's like a lot of restrictions on like if you're trying to get Cretans or Rhodians and stuff like that with your various flavors of Greeks here, but it would seem that basically any and all of our bowmen could be Cretan bowmen, which is pretty badass. It certainly there's a little bit more long-range firepower in this list than the Alexander's version, so that could be interesting in and of itself if you want a little bit more missile capability, basically, like that. So, and basically having marksmen sort of on tap here for your long-range shooting is pretty cool. So you can certainly get lots of small units going like that. Then we move on to the cavalry, and you're pretty spoiled here as well. So we have the companion or a Gemma medium cavalry with spears. So again, that's awesome clash value, but again, it's going to drop off, so you definitely need to do that damage as much as you can on the charge. But they are drilled and elite, which is pretty sweet there. We could also upgrade them to heavy cavalry, which again will give us that extra save, and for 1 extra point, almost seems like a no-brainer. If we wanted to switch over to lances as opposed to spears, basically we see the changes happening there, but that is 3 points extra there. Then we just kind of get like a sort of a generic medium cavalry, line medium cavalry with spears, but we could also go the lance route there. But again, these guys are all still drilled, just a little drop there basically, and the clash value. So not bad, and significantly cheaper overall too. So interesting way to go about it there. So basically this is like just an awesome cavalry component that would tie in with the rather elite infantry component as well. And elite, not necessarily the keyword elite here, but just certainly better than average. We do also get light cavalry, and again, so that small unit harassing cavalry, really just javelins here. Although even they could get lances potentially, which is just kind of bonkers. And then, we could even give them feigned flight, but only 1 unit could get the lance upgrade there. But yeah, feigned flight on tap as well. That's pretty interesting there. So again, you just get such diversity in this list, but also just in some ways this might even be better than the actual Alexander list, just for the extra amount of sort of special rules on tap, basically, that you could field. Obviously, it's going to cost you more points per unit, but nonetheless. Elephant as well with javelin armed crew. So again, we see the stats there, but again, don't be sort of misled because it kind of looks like crappy stats. Again, the elephant rules come into play, so just got to read up on those. But great that we get that to be represented as well. And then light infantry elephant guard is a small unit, basically 1 per elephant. So kind of like, whereas before we had like the chariot runners with a lot of the early Bronze Age lists and stuff, here we get sort of elephant runners to be attached there. So just lots of interesting options there. We get our artillery section finally. So we get bolt throwers, onagers, and ballistas. Again, it would be nice if Warlord would make more models for that. I think there are some, but it's not necessarily always like specifically listed or easy to figure out there. I know the Romans get their stuff, but I don't think it's like listed under any of the other factions. So, but it would be nice to just see some more actual artillery pieces developed for this the ancients, basically. And then we get our leadership 8 as sort of standard, but again, even like the Alexander list here, we can upgrade to leadership 9. So we can upgrade the general to leadership 9 at 25 points a pop there. But interestingly, we can also upgrade all the other, or up to half the other commanders to leadership 9 for another 15 points a pop. So this not only can be a very well-led army from the general's perspective, as in like you getting to really be a little bit more aggressive with pushing your orders through, but basically almost all your commanders, or at least maybe the most important of your commanders, depending on the size of your game, you can certainly go that upgrade route. and just have like this very elite army that can do just about everything. It's got awesome infantry. It's got great cavalry of various flavors. Range firepower is pretty well on point too. It can throw elephants at you. It's got actual artillery as well. So this list can do everything, and it's all almost entirely going to be led at like leadership 9. So just very scary stuff here, guys. So, you know, again, if you're already collecting the Alexander Macedonians, this is a great one to sort of follow up on, and gives you some options to maybe collect a few more models and style it after your favorite successor of choice, whether you want to go like the Seleucids or the Ptolemies, or even some of the actual Macedonian successors. You know, like Pyrrhus and so on. So there's just lots of neat things here, guys. So definitely one to consider, and just gives you like a little bit more, again, to do with your existing Macedonian collection. So very, very good stuff here. So, and again, scary. Like if you're a competent general and you have all these toys here, there's not much that's going to stand up to you, at least contemporary here. You know, there's always that argument of what would have happened if Alexander and company had gone west as opposed to east so much. A list like this is pretty nasty. So if you want to fight a contemporary Roman list, would be some interesting what ifs. But let us know if you've collected this list, tried it out. Again, this is these what they call here the Alexander Successors. Definitely an interesting one, and again, very powerful. Leave us a like, guys. Drop us some comments. You know, what have you played it with this type of list, against it? What's been your experience so far? Things that you maybe think should be changed. Yeah, just let us know in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't already, guys. Thanks so much for checking this out. Hope you guys have a good one. We'll see you in the next one.